What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Sunday Drive. Today we're going to be discussing six designs about the E36 that are good. Last week we talked about some that were not so good, and that list could have definitely been twice if not three times as long. But it's not all bad. This car is obviously very fun to drive, and there are a lot of good things going for it. So today we're going to talk about those. So number one, and the good designs of the E36, we are going to talk about the ease of maintenance. So a lot of people trash on BMWs for being hard to maintain, and while that is true, there are definitely a lot of cars that are lower maintenance than BMWs. That cannot be said for everything on this car. Basic maintenance, I would say, is pretty easy. Doing belts, you have a lot of access to the pulleys. You have a lot of access to, get the belt off, obviously, and replace like things like the water pump, whatever. Even the cooling system, like, it's common failure, but it's not too hard to do. Spark plugs, obviously, they're right on top. You just pull the cover off, and there you have access to your coils and spark plugs. Oil changes are super easy. So basic maintenance on this car is not overly difficult to do. Now, once you start opening up the engine, like, you gotta pull the head off or something, or do, it's beeping at me. Once you have to do like more in-depth repairs like engine work or trans work, whatever, or let's say rebuild the diff, just like anything, it's obviously not easy. You need the manual. You can't fix a BMW with a hammer. You gotta pull the book out, look up the torque specs, whatever, because it is a luxury car, and that comes with luxury vehicle things. But overall, I would say that for your day-to-day maintenance, it's pretty easy. Moving on to number two. And this one's really fun, the Vanos. So this one's very controversial, and that's because Vanos units are known to have problems, but when it's working, it's actually really cool design. So the idea was that back in, the early 90s, Honda started their variable valve timing VTEC, but the problem with VTEC is it was basically on or off. There was no like progressive build out. Well, BMW didn't want that. They wanted like a progressive variable valve timing. So what was the solution? The solution was Vanos. So it uses a solenoid. It's like a hybrid between hydraulic and mechanical. So the solenoid activates, it starts pushing oil through the Vanos unit, and then that takes this gear and it pushes it to your cam gear. And the more power it wants you to make, the more it's going to be pushing that against the cam gear. That's basically the dump down way to describe it. I'm definitely not qualified to explain how Vanos works, but that's like your little 20-second crash course. But it's a really cool design because it allowed you to get a more linear power band rather than the Honda very peaky VTEC-y power band where it like kicks over. Now, that said, there is a kickover in this, and when it hits, it sounds really good. So, as you just heard in that sound clip there, right around between 5,000 and 5,500, the motor gets a lot meaner sounding, is the best way to describe it. It like switches over, and you can definitely hear the change in the motor, and you don't necessarily feel it as much. You do feel a little bit, but you definitely hear it, and it sounds really good. The reason why Vanos is super nice in this car is because it allows you to get really good gas mileage. This is a 3.2 liter inline six with not super aggressive cams, but more aggressive than normal street cams. And on the highway going 60 miles an hour, I still get like 32 miles a gallon. Can't say that about a lot of cars. That's really friggin' good. So say what you want about Vanos, and honestly, even on this car, you only have to, they say you're supposed to reseal it every 50K miles. People don't, and it's fine. And if you ever have to rebuild it, a new Vanos unit's $300. Labor might get you like $1,500 to $2,000, but again, every like over 100,000 miles, that's not that bad, especially for the benefit you're getting in the gas mileage department and how smooth it runs. Like, it's worth it. So that was definitely a good design about this car that definitely holds up even to today, because they used iterations of what's in this car in modern day BMWs. So moving on to number 3 good designs about this car, and I'm going to talk about the spare wheel and jack. Now that's going to sound kind of goofy. You're like, hey Sonny, don't all cars come with the spare wheel and jack? Yes. Well, actually no. Some of them just give you a little kit, which is kind of like a lame excuse for a spare wheel, because you get like this little kit. It's like a tire inflator, which will only get you like, it'll get you a short distance wherever you need to go, but if you're like 200 miles away from your house, you're screwed. But what this car gives you is a full-size spare and a really good jack, because the jack in this car, you essentially, it like has a thing off of it and it sticks in, well, there's like these little circles on the side skirts, and you take flathead, which they give you in the toolkit, by the way, which is also kind of going with this. Take the flathead, they give you in the toolkit, pop those out, then you stick the jack in there, and that is a point in which you can raise a corner of the car up, and then you get obviously your lug wrench, and you take the lug nuts off, or lug bolts, and put your new wheel on. And then you can make it home and put a proper tire on it. I had to use this one time, so I can tell you from actual experience, being on the side of the road, it's very intuitive and easy to use. I was honestly like impressed with it, because it's kind of one of those things, you know, people talk about it and you're like, oh, that's kind of cute. No, it actually, I put that spare wheel on, and even with the tire from, you know, 1998, I was able to make it like 180 miles back to my house in Michigan. That was like in the middle of Ohio, literally. I mean, that's, how cool is that? Can't say that about a lot of modern cars. They give you a little, if they give you a spare, it's generally like a donut, and you can't go over 50, and you look like an idiot. At least in this case, I only had one mismatch wheel. So number 4 I'm going to talk about is going to be the suspension geometry on this car. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know how everything works or what it's called, but what I can tell you is in this car, on the twisties, it is very planted and stable, and it gives you confidence to do things that a lot of cars don't give you the confidence to do. I do a little something there. But yeah, suspension. So obviously you've seen me do POV drives, and this car is very planted around the corners. Part of that's because I have poly bushings, but even stock, I've driven stock ones. I mean, I bought this car basically stock. It's predictable. You know what it's gonna do, and it makes you feel kind of like a superhero, because you can take corners at speeds that you really shouldn't be able to, but the suspension allows you to, and it's just really nice. Now, I will say the E36 suspension is similar, but arguably the E46 handles better, LSD notwithstanding, but the traction control on the E46 is insane, which this car doesn't have. I mean, it has traction control, but it's not really that good. My buddy in his E46 330 abuses the all-wheel drive and traction control on his, and he does some really stupid stuff. But even on the E36, it's very planted, it's predictable, it feels good, you know what it's gonna do, like, you know what's going on, and it's really nice. It's a fun drive. I cannot talk about how nice the suspension is on this car, but for the sake of this video, I'll have to keep it shorter. Just trust me, it feels nice. They really hit it home on this car. Number 5 we're going to talk about is going to be the interior of the E36. Now, this is kind of a hit or miss depending on how you look at it, because the interior on this car tends to fall apart over time. But, and when I say fall apart, I don't mean like it literally falls apart, but I mean like things just happen. Like over here, glove box sag, things don't like to open and close the way they used to. I got a sunroof, not sunroof, the sun visor, little mounting tab up there is like dry rotted. Just things like that, like it wears down. But overall, the interior, the driver's cockpit's really nice. The dashboard angles towards you. It's almost like a fighter jet. Not as much as like a Mark IV Supra, but you get everything pointed towards you. That's really cool. The seats in this car, obviously there's an M3, but since this is a sedan, the M3 seats are literally just the regular sports seats with stripes. But they look cool nonetheless, and even the non-M seats are still really cool looking. It's nice and retro. And it's just a nice interior. The materials are nice. I mean, even, wow, that, yeah, talk about a pothole. Even like the dashboard, like it's a plastic, yeah, but like it's not like GM 90s garbage. It feels nicer than that. All the buttons feel nice. The turn signals, I mean, a nice click. Like it just, everything's nice to touch. And that's just cool. It's kind of one of those things. Maybe I'm just really nitpicky and I'm just a sucker for this car. But trust me, the interior's nice, and it's very much a product of its era. And that's what I like about it. It's just cool. Then moving on to the last thing, number 6. This one's going to be very, very subjective, more so than the last one. That is the styling. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably agree with me, because let's face it, this is basically an E36 channel, because it's what I'm driving right now. But the styling is very, again, very of its period, but it's got like a level of timelessness about it that's just really cool and really nice. I think that BMW hit it home with the styling in this car. It was one of the first cars that they designed using a lot of CAD and like wind tunneling. The E31 8 Series before this car was like the first one only designed with CAD, but this one had a lot of CAD taken from it too, and they definitely went for more of the slippery through the wind look, or I guess function, and that translates to the look. And then obviously it was the first car that they ever like closed the headlights in and separated their kidney grills, which is kind of part of it, what makes it look a little more modern than it might be, because it was the first car they ever did that. It was like the bridge between old and modern BMW. And it definitely looks good. I think it looks good. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. I think the E36 is one of the better looking BMWs. And honestly, I can say that from talking to a lot of people, BMW people and not. Actually, I've noticed a lot of non-BMW agree with this too, but it's probably one of the definitely top 5 best looking BMWs ever made. I'd say that this is probably a lot of non-BMWs people's favorite BMW. Especially Volkswagen guys. Volkswagen guys really like this car. I don't know. Just kind of funny. That and E30s. But we're getting off topic. Those are the 6 things about the E36 that I really like. I tried to kind of have things in here that were maybe not really specific to the M car. None of them are really specific to the M car. Obviously the styling, whatever, the M stuff helps, but even the non-Ms look really good. But anyway, I'm just gonna keep talking. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. I upload every Sunday. I certainly enjoy making these videos. I obviously released that little sketch earlier this week. I plan on doing more of those probably as we get more into the spring and summer, whatever. But like, subscribe, comment down below what you think. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.